All right, Game Boy Advance hybrid parts are here finally. So I'm gonna I can at least for now consider this an official assembly video. Um, Trying out this new neck strap thingy, so hopefully this works. So if you're new to this, this is for converting your old beat up plastic Game Boy and putting the electronics in our metal housings with either a glass front here, or if you really wanted the full metal look, we are going to have these metal ones available. So I'm going to build with the glass because I think that's got a little more to it. And yeah, so let's just get started. So I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of detail on disassembling. There's a ton of videos online on how to disassemble, but it couldn't be easier. You need a small Phillips drive, not too small. I think this is 2.0 size. You could go a little bigger, a little smaller, and still be okay. And then this is a tri-wing, so this has that, looks like a Y drive. So the Y drive will there's four, get this a little closer. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fasteners on the outside. So that Y drive is going to remove those. And then you'll have one Phillips right, trying to look past my camera, right there. So you take that out with a Phillips. And then that'll get you your rear housing off. And then, so you'll need to remove this. This is I think these are all Phillips. There's going to be some Phillip fasteners that hold this thing in here. So because we're going to reuse that. And then we're also going to reuse, depending on what build you're doing. If you're doing rechargeable batteries, technically you don't need this, but I think it's still a good idea to just take it out because the battery, if you're using a rechargeable battery in our housings, so this is where the rechargeable battery is going to sit. The rechargeable battery will sit in here, but it's going to be kind of biased. It's going to be pushed only by, if you don't have these contacts, it's going to be pushed by these contacts over. It'll sit kind of wonky. I mean, you can make it work, but I think it's just better just to have these. It's not that big of a deal to take them out. So this one I already kind of started, or I actually took it out, but what I'll do is like this middle post here, I'll just kind of bend it back, and then from this side you can kind of press in here and here, and eventually you'll get this out. So what's keeping it from getting out is this center thing. You can look straight down, it's kind of digging in. So if you give it more room by pulling that post out, or if you can snap it off if you're not going to use these, and then that should come out. So you'll need that, and you'll need that. So we'll bring that over here. And then so this is what it looks like pretty much when you open it up. Your little shoulder buttons can just drop out. Most people probably get new ones, but if you're using them, keep those. The power switch just drops out. Well, okay. These little thingies aren't going to be used at all, no matter what. And then there's going to be a couple fasteners holding this board in. These are going to be Phillips drive. So disconnect those. And then careful of this. So this is, it's fairly robust, but so this connects your screen. So this orange piece, you're not gonna use this. Most people, you're not gonna use this screen. It doesn't fit. At least it's not designed right now to fit an OEM screen. So these come off by pushing these little black. If you can see those little brown little tabs up. It's best if you push them up at the same time usually. So those are up now, and then you can disconnect this. Might be easier if you have the board disconnected like I do already. Then you can just lift it up and get a little more room to work that out. So that's it. So you don't need, well, most people won't need any of this, assuming you aren't going to reuse these old silicone pieces. You're not reusing your screen. You know, I like to keep these because sometimes they get lost if I'm doing a different type of build. But that's the diffuser. So this diffuses the LED light, but you don't need it on the new one, on the hybrid. It just shows the LED. So I'm going to put all that aside, put the fasteners aside. We're not going to use those. So we're going to have new fasteners. So fasteners aside, all the other stuff here. And then I should note you will need a 2mm hex. Or you might be able to get away with using a standard size that's close to that. I don't know what that'd be, 5/64 or 3/32 possibly. Okay, so we got our board out. Now's the time to, if you want to clean anything. Speaker usually is pretty dirty. So alcohol on a Q-tip. You know, clean your A and B and clean, you know, in general. Go ahead and clean it while it's out. I know this power switch is good. It worked really well, so I'm not going to do anything with the power switch, but sometimes those need to be either replaced or fixed. There's some techniques on how to do that. Okay. So there's that. So I'll clean up that metal shroud a little bit here while I'm here. Okay, so that's ready. So the screen. So our screen, let me make sure this is. So this is the same screen we have, but it's actually purchased from another supplier. So this is it's either Handheld Legend or Retro Modding. I can't remember which one. But so if you want the logo, I think they offer it. So this is, I know it's one of theirs just because I took a look and I saw the logo. It has to be the, I think it's Hospedido or something. That's the same glass because all the different manufacturers have a different shape. They're not the same, and that's the reason why I had to, you know, this cutout right here, this cutout shape to fit this, had to fit this, because if I made it fit another glass or another screen like I tried to do in the original Game Boys, then there'd be too big of a gap, and I'd get emails and stuff like that. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to choose this one screen and design around it and hope that the sizing tolerance for the glass isn't too significant, I hope. So, you know, we have it removed here because we imported some of these and they took them all when they went through the border. When they came into the country, they just took them. So I learned my lesson and just decided, you know what, I'm just going to go for the clean look anyway, which is without the logo. So the ones we sell don't have a logo. So that's what's behind that. But either way, the assembly is the same. So I put this little touch sensor. So there's two touch sensors. There's this one, I think, is for the color palette, I think. But I know this one right here. So this one on the bottom is for the brightness. And this is the one that, to me, which I use. And it lines up with, there's these little recesses, so the screen fits, fits down like that, and there's room behind here for the touch sensors. You can see if you wanted to, I did it on the other side also. If you wanted to basically extend this wire, so you'd have to solder, so you'd have to take that off. I know this is blasphemy for some, but I'm just gonna cut this off because I know I'm not gonna use it. I don't want it to get in the way when I'm assembling things. So, well, I'll leave a little bit just in case, change my mind. So, and then the touch sensor we'll put about where it is right here once we're ready to mount it. And then the other thing you got to look at, so the screen will come with two of these flex cables, and so how this works is, so obviously one end goes to the screen and one end goes to the Game Boy Advance. So there's different, if you're new to this, there's two different connectors. Nintendo made two widths. There's a thick and a thin. So this one, for example, fits into here. So you know that's the wider ones. And then obviously this one goes in there. But if you had a thin, then, one end goes, if you had a thin connector on your Game Boy, then it'd use this one. So we have a thick one. But we're not going to connect that. There's different ways you can assemble this. I'm going to show it this, with doing it like this first. So this little tab here, if you can see that, there's like a little flap. Sometimes it can be a little tricky, but it'll flip up like that. And then we just, got it upside down. Let me stick it in. I may have to, get some magnifiers here because I'm getting old. No, for real, I am. Off camera, I'm sticking this in. I got it right up against my face here. I'm still here. Whew. Okay. So that's how that should look with the non-conductive side up like that. You should see that. So you shouldn't see any gold there. So that's ready. And then let's prepare the rear housing real quick. So we'll need our 3D printed part, and we'll need this. So let's get this in there. So that kind of just slides in, hopefully, presses in. Try to press it in so it's, not sticking above this. So there's that. And then we take our rear housing. Well, no, wait. So that's that, but then we also have this. So this is our ball detent, or it's like a little grub screw with the ball. So the ball goes down into the rear housing. So this is what's going to keep our battery cover from sliding in and out. So just kind of started it by hand, and then I'm going to get my 2mm hex ready, and also we're going to slide in our battery cover. So this just has a little protrusion there and a little channel that slides into. So the ball detent's not in all the way, so it'll just slide like that. So what we can do is, I should note, it would probably be a good idea to use maybe a Loctite blue. I probably wouldn't recommend red. Red's permanent per se, but blue, at least you have a chance of getting it out. Just so that it doesn't back out. So just turning that in, and then I can feel it. See, I can't even move it right now, so now I'm loosening it until I can feel it. So that's in there pretty good. So tweak that till you like it, like the feel of it. And then, because this is gonna cover it up. So this is our 3D printed part to isolate, so we don't have any conductive parts exposed. And then these are Phillips. So now, again, this is where we're gonna use, we have 4mm screws and 6mm long with our, and this comes with the housing. So we're gonna use these. Do not use the plastites. Those are a completely different thread type. I'm gonna go one in here. I'm just kind of feeling to make sure we're not sticking out, as they are 3D printed parts. And that means they're not always as precise as we want them to be. Be careful not to over tighten. And then the last thing we'll need is our little cart shield here, whatever you want to call it. Technically, you only need a couple screws to hold it in, but we'll see how much patience I have today. You can fast forward if you want. I'm just putting in these 4 fasteners. So 1, 2, and then there's 2 more over here. These are 4mm long again. Really, I think the only 6mm ones, I mean, unless there was a damaged thread and you needed a longer 6mm in any of these holes or something. But in general, the 6mm longs are, I think they're only used in the, when you put the front and the rear housings together. But, so I just put in those, again, not over tightening. Okay. So that should be everything for the rear housing, so we'll set that aside. And now we'll look at the front housing. I think it's going to be, well, I'll show this method is going to be to put this on first. It's got its pros and its cons to doing it this way. Obviously, the biggest disadvantage of doing this first is you're risking, putting this on and then particles or something gets in here while you're assembling. But it makes everything else, I think, easier. But the one thing you definitely want to do is whenever you put in the screen, you're going to want to put the screen, meaning the screen. You want to put this in first because it has this to guide it. Otherwise, if you put this in first and then you try to maybe put in this last, which would be nice, but if this isn't quite where it needs to be, then it's going to fight and you may have issues. So I'm going to put on this. I'm going to try to keep the front layer on, the front protective film, at least for the most part, but still try not to touch the glass in general. And then we'll take off this 3M material. So if you're using, so this is the point at which if you're using a metal front, right, you're gonna have to source some of this super thin 3M double-sided tape. It's not the stuff you get at Home Depot or any place. It's fractions of a millimeter thick. I think I have it listed somewhere. If not, let me know. I'll I'll put it in the product listing for the metal parts. Wouldn't be a bad idea. I already cleaned this part, but to put, take some alcohol and soup wherever this adhesive is gonna go on the housing. So clean the housing. So I'm just making sure that this plastic isn't gonna get on that adhesive because it's very sticky. Use some pressure, get that in there. Okay. Now we need this. So again, this is going to go on the outside. This is going to go facing us because these are for our touch sensors. So I'll put this in here. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 Phillips 4mm long fasteners with that go in to hold this in place. So as with most things, I always start them first. Don't tighten them, just get the thread started. Get them all started first. Work your way around. And then once it stops, just a little bit extra. We don't need to make these super tight and ruin the threads or something else. So now that's the mount for the screen. And I'm hoping at some point, some days in the future, I could make, in theory, different glass and different screens. That's why I kind of wanted to make this 3D printed, so that if I wanted to change this, we could, in theory, depending on the shape of the screen and everything, that I could use a different screen. So, so now it's probably, yeah. So let's put the screen in now. Kind of holding the glass down just so I don't compromise that adhesive that's setting. I'm only keeping this on just so I don't get fingerprints on it. I don't know if it's worth it. By the time I go and do all this. Okay. So now we got this, we got our flex in there, it's locked down. If you bought this from us or any place, they're gonna want you to test this before you put this in. So what connect this up, put in some batteries or put this in your housing. Don't forget to test it, because if it's already mounted, then and you have an issue, that's not good. So I just took off there's a little blue tab up on top. So that's now the adhesive is exposed on top. And now we're going to do the bottom. There's that. And then I already know about right there. I can put the touch sensor. I try to put it a bit away from the metal if possible. Oh, it just stuck. That's not too bad, but if I could, I'd put it a little bit further away. So this corner, this will go under, and then this flex will go, see there's a little kind of hole, like a little channel. So I'll feed that flex through there, like that. So it goes under the glass, between the glass and the 3D printed part. Then I get that corner in there. Then that should sit down like that. Again, apply some pressure. Not too much. Okay. And then, now here's where I usually use the fixture or something just to raise it off, because when you put the buttons in, it'll want to push everything up, and when it just makes it easier when you have something like whatever if you're not using this, but use something to raise it up off the ground, or raise it up, because it'll do this otherwise. You'll see how everything can get pushed up, so when you're trying to put the board on, and silicone can get moved out of place. Okay, we're making good progress here, so don't need that, don't need that. We're finished with that. We set our hex, our tension on our rear sliding piece here. So now we can, let's do buttons. So you can use either plastic buttons. So if you buy a set from us, we have limited colors, but if you buy a set from us, it'll come with the shoulder buttons. It'll come with these things that you don't need, so you can just throw those away. And then, you got your shoulders, you got your A, B, your D-pad, and your power button. So, but in this build, I'm gonna use black buttons here. So we don't need our A, B, but we do need these. I haven't designed these yet. Started, but it's only so many days of the week, unfortunately. So buttons, the A and the B are different, and they only fit in one way. Just turn them until they drop down in. Like that. And the D-pad will look like that. Just sit down in there. And then our silicone. So they're different depending on where you get these. Silicone rubbers. Some are stiffer than others. Some feel very different. So I don't know. I just get them like I think everybody else is just, overseas. I don't know which supplier makes which durometer rubber, which means how soft and pliable. But I do know just from past experience that sometimes these can be stiffer, or at least this D-pad can be. So just something to be aware of if you're not feeling it. Maybe try your stock OEM ones. Or a different supplier. So D-pad, there's little posts, 2 little posts that align that. Get that in. There's a post there for the start select and the A and B, 2 little posts there. So that goes like that. We got these parts here on standby. We got our battery ready. So now we're ready to put this in. So what I would do, just because I think it's easier, you could mount this and then connect this, but I just think it's easier because you get a little more room to move around, is to connect this before you fasten it. So that slides in like that, and then the little brown little tabs. Ideally, you got to press them both at once, because if you press one, then the other one will go up, and the other one will go up, and you'll fight it. So you just press them both, those little brown tabs. So those little guys. Okay, zoom out. Now would be a time if you want to check for debris or anything if you have in there in your glass. And then so when this is coming over, there's a post that's going to come through there. Let's see if I can zoom in. So there's that post right there. It's going to come through. And on this side, there's some alignment hole pins. Here we go. This side, there's some alignment pins that come through. But the first thing you want to do is there's this little tab. If you can see that little tab on the battery, there's a little relief right in there. That's kind of where the area that there's room for that. So just kind of, you might have to twist it a little bit, but that's the first thing I'm doing, is making sure that because that'll hold things up, that goes into place. So you feel it kind of went down, and you'll see that right there kind of went all the way down. This is almost touching this, and then I can see there's that post, and over here posts are coming through. Okay, and then 4mm, we'll use those on this hole. And this hole. So now that's held in place. Got our screen connected, looking good. And then we got our shoulders. So this one says right, so it's gonna go on our left because we're looking at it from the back. So this is gonna slide underneath the board. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at that little nubby. It's gonna go in that little hole. And then I'm also gonna be looking at this to make sure that goes inside the housing. Let's see if I can look down. Slides in, I'm getting that post lined up, getting that in there. Whoop. So something like that. Kind of feel okay. It's moving her somewhat correctly. Do this one. Okay. And then the power switch. So power switch. So this detent right here is going to go down. That'll go in first. And then our little legs will line up with our power switch. Test it out, everything's good, okay. All right, so now the rear housing. So we're gonna take off the battery cover. Rear housing, so our battery contacts, just like the OEM, we're gonna watch these come through here. And then we're also gonna be kind of actuating the shoulders if needed, but we're trying to align those shoulders so that they go exactly into the little protrusion. So those little nubbies here are gonna have to line up. And that's because right now they're gonna wanna flop out. That's why we're not gonna force it. So we're kind of fighting the power switch a little bit and making sure that goes in, the shoulders and the battery contacts. Okay, so I got the battery contacts. Shoulder just moved out of position. Power switch. Okay. Okay. Trying to look at my screen. So 4 fasteners. These are the 6mm long, finally. Taking a bit of a risk, you know, assuming everything's gonna work perfectly. The screen's connected, everything's connected properly. By putting in all these fasteners, probably be a good idea before you do this to put in your rechargeable battery or batteries, AA batteries. Okay, battery, be careful when opening this. They have a piece of tape here, and if you're using a razor blade, razor blades and rechargeable batteries, not a good thing. So the cover, you can see on all batteries, so they're gonna be unpredictable. It's kind of hard to know exactly. So that will kind of push the battery around a little bit. And, you know, I got to design around a port for something that's not always exact. So you may just need to manipulate things a little bit. What I did is there's a little guide. So this Type-C, when it's coming in, it has these little sidewalls here that should, in theory, guide and kind of move this battery a little bit to make it line up. But you may need to just have some patience a little bit, at least at first. So, you know, that just goes in like that. And then this, and I'll show you on the opposite side here. You can see the Type-C port. It looks like it's probably going to line because I have the battery contacts in. If you didn't have the battery contacts in, you know, you opted not to take them out of your plastic housing, this is where it's probably going to be biased that way a bunch. And so then you may have to like kind of finagle things a little bit, or you know, you could stick something in there, cardboard, plastic, something to just push it over if you really didn't want to use those. So everything goes together pretty good. Let's see. I'll make sure that type C fits. Yeah, it's good. Okay. All right. Let's see if this turns out. It does. This and the types. Here we go. Okay. Buttons. All right, there it is. Good luck, have fun. Let me know if you have any questions.